welcome to RealClearFetish Talks RealClearPlay. It's been 2 weeks and I am back, and the weather is looking nice or freezing or warm. It can't really make up its mind. Everyone's saying global warming, I'm just saying it's April. But this week we are near Manchester, I think. He might clarify in a moment for me. And his name is Banjo. Hello, Banjo.
Hello very much. Yes, just outside of Manchester City Centre because fuck City Centre prices.
See, I was looking up it on Facebook, so where is he? And then it said a town, I wasn't sure where it was, and is that a part of Manchester? So I'm glad you can clarify it for me.
Yeah, cool beans.
Okay, first question is, what do you prefer I call you, name, pronouns, and title?
Definitely Banjo. That's just generally what most people in social circles and naughty circles call me. Pronouns, I'm going to steal a line from Best Dressed Mess Tish, who basically says, he, him, gay, she. And I was like, stealing, thank you. And entitled, oh God, where do we start?
Does it depend on which guy is standing in front of you, what title you might have?
Yes, or girl.
Oh, girl. Oh, yeah, of course. I saw you. You're bisexual or pansexual?
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So, in general, I'm more of a body comfort advocate. I don't tend to do like the body confidence. It's more, I feel if you get more comfortable in yourself, then you're halfway to getting confident. So it's just, I focus more on, because there's plenty of people who are doing an amazing job in body confidence. So I'm like, feel comfortable in your body, and then you are pretty much halfway there. It's going to be fine. So advocating that in all sorts of sort of kinky spaces and just general LGBT. I try to be anyway, as much as possible. Can't really pin down I am a rubbery person, I am a leathery person, because I'm pretty much just jack of all trades. With it all, there's always something nice.
Well, why stick to one fetish when you can have them all?
Yeah, bisexual. Making decisions is really hard. Bisexual and poly, it's like, why make a decision?
Absolutely. Completely sober, clear-headed, or social drinker?
So never done any drugs or anything, but with drinking social. It's which has been a weird experience, socially drinking while during lockdown times. But yeah, no, very much just it's social rather than sort of anything else.
And what is clear play to you, and why is it important?
So, I always like to think of it as, before any kind of a scene, I just don't drink in general, or pretty much I just stay as sober-headed as possible, and that's just more of a mental, so I'm sober-minded as well, and so that I'm a bit more into the scene and more into whatever is going on, and I'm more engaged as well. I think if I'm drunk, I'm a little bit more, look over there, than anything else. So it's just a bit of a wanting to make sure that I'm present, and then the other person is present as well, and then there's that communication, because communication is literally, I always try and say, safe, sane, consensual communication are the best things, and it's just much easier when you're clear-headed.
It's also easier when you're clear-headed to measure consent. It's because consent is sexy, boys and girls. I literally saw an headline, of course, from America, where one of the states was putting in a suggestion that if you have engaged in sex, you cannot withdraw the consent in the act, which brain just exploded. It was like, of course you can. You can do it at any time. You could be fist deep in him. If he's saying no, take the fist out and stop.
Yeah. Consent and safe words? Always. Just yes. I'd prefer someone asking, are you alright, far too much than not enough. Because at the very least you can go, yes I am, keep going, or asking them, are you alright? Yes.
Yeah, what you're doing there is perfect, keep going.
Yeah.
So you say you about body confidence and body comfortable, you said. Why do you want to promote more of that? I know the kink scene can be a little bit like muscle Marys, and it's a certain archetype, and the kink scene has definitely been bad with promoting that type of body type all the time, and it can cause issues with kink members not feeling enough. Is that where some of that stuff comes in?
Definitely. I think it's just one of those where it's very... It's the whole LGBT spaces are meant to be inclusive as is anyway, because they're very much safe spaces. Like, I very much adopted Manchester's Village as just a second home from the house, basically, because of just how much of a, right, this is a safe space, this is a safe spot, this is all just very close. And I think being part of that and wanting to make sure that it is the best it can be is wanting to sort of see people who are very much just being authentically themselves as much as possible and not really giving a fuck. And just sort of saying, right, I want to be this, I want to do this. And sort of, I think from seeing, because in Manchester it seems there's a huge bear community and they are all lovely people and they're very gorgeous. And it's just sort of like, right, why do we not see that as much in your rubbers, in your leathers, as a standard? You see them out at everyone, at all types of people out at events, but then it's sort of like, well, why is that not reflected in a wider scale? Why is that not reflected on social media imagery? Why is that not reflected in posters for events? Why is that not reflected in literally just in sexy underwear ads, those kind of things? And so and it's sort of saying, I always try and say anybody is sexy, not anybody, anybody, because it's true, literally. Like, anyone can be in what you're wearing, which is very lovely, and look absolutely amazing with that confidence, even without really. And like, in what I am, the amount of people who go, oh, I wish I looked at, it's like, you don't need to be like, I wish I looked like you or as good. Most of it, I always say, angles, filters, false confidence. Literally, it's just like,
we're definitely in a situation now, especially it's the fetish and the Instagram people, where it can, and trust me, I'm equally as bad, because how long do I try to get the right angle, the right light, and so on, play around with it? I can look like $1,000,000 in a picture. It's not necessarily how I feel in the picture, it has to be said, but we are in this notion of, are they going to look the same in reality? Not necessarily that's a bad thing if they look different compared to a picture, because it's a picture, it's a snapshot of who you are. You have no emotion, no feeling for the person.
Yeah, I think, well, what I try and sort of do with it, myself personally, and just try and sort of project, is not that because obviously you want to get the best sort of angles, or you just want to make it look as flattering as possible if you're going for that. But I think just, you can look flattering and still be fat. You can still look flattering and still be anything. And it's very much just like, I think if you see those pictures as at their best, that gives that boost, that projects that confidence, and then you can go, I know that I look like this. I might have just been squinting in another photo, but that's literally just what happens. Like, that's what happens with anybody. And just sort of being able to sort of just look at those final products though and just go, right, I know that I look like that, I look bomb as hell, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do more, sort of project more, be more, and that comes with that sort of comfort, because you're then looking at yourself and you're being more comfortable in what you're presenting. You end up taking less first, second, third selfies before you get, oh my god, that's the really fun one, that's a really great one. And then it's just that sort of steamroll and into just being more confident, I think, anyway. So I think it works, but just not relying on it.
Oh, absolutely. I've always been very an advocate of, yes, I can look mean in leather, and there is this notion that a bluff guy has to not smile and look constipated the whole time. which is fine, and it works very well if he's on top of me, because that is the kind of thing I get off on. But if I take a picture of me smiling or doing something that's non-bluff man, I don't fucking care. It's what was it? I was running around at Antwerp Leather Pride last time. I have quite a few stuffed toys. My friends keep buying them for me, and I have a little non-gender specific unicorn with wings, and I had it with me, and I ran around just like, do you want to have a picture with this unicorn, which is so off-brand for a Leatherman to run around and doing. But most people were like, oh yeah, let me pose with this is fun. Yeah. And it was just, we don't have to be so serious. We're all running around in, well, rubber is from a fucking tree and leather is dead cow skin. We need to take it less serious and just have fun with it.
No, definitely. And it's that kind of weird, why are we being so serious? Literally, you can do anything, you can like look like anything, but it's just that very, but you said like brand, it's a brand that has a place. It's not the only bloody one. And I think people just need to remember that and just sort of go, right, I know that it's not a be-all, end-all to, because the amount of times people actually end up smiling in a photo, it's the one that gets the most comments. Oh my god, you look great smiling. And it's just the weirdest, like, well, you've seen that people actually enjoy seeing you enjoying yourself, but then you go back to, it's like, it looks great, but you've got to, yeah.
Well, I sometimes, when I see a Leatherman on a picture and he has this slightly cheeky grin or a smile on, I'm just like, I want to know what's going on in his head, because that can only be good.
Oh god, yeah.
That's much more, of course, a nice smoldering look where it's a little bit covered over the eyes and so on. That works very well for me. It's like I spend many hours wanking to that, but it's just not. It's not reality. It's not how a person is. You're more likely to walk into a leather bar and hear them talking about the latest Mary Berry recipe they've been trying out, than them standing around talking about beating up their slaves all the time. Which is also fun. Absolutely. I'll put that out there. If there's any slaves that want to be beaten up, I'm right here. Consent, of course. Consent, of course. Applications greatly received. But yeah, it's as you say, it's a brand. It's a certain way of being. I think I had someone write to me once, and not that I took it too much to heart, and I know who I am as a person, and sometimes when I get excited, my arms move quite a lot. I'm quite expressive. And I had someone write to me yet again at Antwerp Leather Pride, and he was like, oh my god, you look so hot in your leather, but you were too camp for me. It was like, so you just took your time to write to me saying I was looking good, but I'm too camp. What are you getting out of doing that? I don't know. Because I know who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am. I'm neither hyper masculine. I'm neither hyper feminine. I'm me. I'm just kind of an in-between, a little bit camp one day, not so camp the next day. It also depends on what mood I'm in, what am I dressed in, who am I with. Definitely, there's nothing better than a night out with the girls where it's just camping it up, and that's perfectly fine as well. And I can do that in gear as well. I have no issue with that.
Well, they're normally in their full leathers as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, that's the thing, like, one of the best nights at MRM, the MRM weekend, is the Oscars after show. If anyone sort of knows of that, it's the campus time. Like, I think the one year there were visitors from Germany who actually learnt bare necessities in German so that they could literally sing it all through Oscars and down Canal Street. And I think they played it about 5 times one year.
Next time it's on, when we finally can get to that, I'll learn some of my Disney songs in Danish and just belt them out in Danish instead. Because Denmark is actually one of the big countries that's really good at translating Disney cartoons. We've gotten awards for it, so our songs are quite good actually, and it makes sense, whereas some other translations are not so good. So I had a quick look at your Instagram and some of the pictures you put up. I'm getting a sense you're slightly nerdy, geeky. Am I right in that path?
Very much so. Yes.
I was a little bit curious because I was looking and I fell over the picture of you as an orc. Is that
Yes.
all green and so on? And I was just like, is it bestiality to fancy an orc, or is it something else, or what is it? But I'm discovering a whole new section of kind of geeky fetishists who also do cosplay. But where is that line between cosplay and fetish or role play? Is that something you've kind of mixed up, or has that been more for the fun of it?
For me, it's not so much the cosplay elements. I think the only sort of I've cosplay influenced, I think, but definitely it's more. I just want to. It's a sort of creative. I want to just do this because it's fun type outlet more than anything. And then by proxy, it's quite fun seeing how much people are saying this should not turn me on. Why is it turning me on?
I'm putting my hand up right now.
I did a clown one a while back, and I got quite a few people sort of saying, shouldn't be doing this.
Oh, there is a clown fetish, I can guarantee you. And there's probably the whole balloon community was probably all over it.
Yeah. Oh no, don't worry, I know a few. Lunas, they're called.
Lunas, yes, that of course that is the name.
Yes.
I forgot.
yeah. But yeah, it's more of a. It's kind of like accessorizing. I kind of find. There was the one I did when I was working at the Eagle, where it was sort of like I had rubber shorts on, and then just like a rope. Sort of, I did the most basic sort of rope bondage on myself, and then it was just sort of like oil and sort of mermaid stuff, and it was just sort of like. It was for Halloween, and it was just sort of like, it just looked fun, and it all went together as a bit of a fun outfit. I did end up having a drag queen who came in, who said I looked like Mystique. And I went, not quite it. But she was lovely. She was absolutely wasted, but that's.
Well,
that's
it's
fine.
a drag queen in Manchester, in Canal Street. Aren't most of them quite wasted most of the time?
No. They're all lovely. No, seriously,
Are,
they are lovely.
Are they all professional and keep sober until they're off work? Wink,
I do
wink.
know a few, actually. I do know a couple. Yeah. Not all, but I know a couple.
No, I'm completely generalising, and if any of the drag queens now come after me, I do apologise.
Oh yeah, I know a couple, so they're already typing.
I'm already cancelled by the drag queens in Manchester. That was not the point
It's
of it.
fine.
But yeah, it is, as you mentioned, Halloween, rubber guys and Halloween, it's just the perfect mix. And it's always fun to go out in rubber and kind of add like fangs or blood or something, because everyone's like, oh my god, you put so much effort in. It's like, no, this was just in my wardrobe. I just added some Halloween tricks to it.
Yeah.
What was it? One Halloween, I had a red boiler suit, rubber top, and red contacts, like fiery red contacts and fake blood. And I must admit, yet again, that situation, this should not turn me on. But it did. Something about those red eyes. Unfortunately, because I use contacts and you can't get my prescription in colored contacts, so I can wear the contacts, but I'll look crazy because I have astigmatism and I look like Russell Howard. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you're just literally just going.
It's like I'm looking
do I have
two
consent
directions.
if I touch you? Yeah.
I'm looking in two directions. I'm looking at you and looking at the door at the same time. No, it's. I have run into people who actually find that quite a turn on because I look slightly crazy. My ex liked it. I don't know why. I'm very self-conscious about it when it happens. So one of the reasons that were quite bad when I was still using drugs was, of course, when you're using drugs, you're slightly more relaxed. So that means my eyes were also more relaxed. So if I had astigmatism and slightly cross-eyed normally, this was like I'm looking at the inside of my head cross-eyed. So not a good look, really.
Is it different?
It's a different one. I'm sure.
Well, in terms
I'm
of
sure I
just
can
sort of
find
like
someone.
Sorry, in terms of someone sort of saying that's sexy, it's different to think it, but each their own. We don't kink shame.
Well, put me in a
not
white
to.
lab coat and some mad manic laughter. Yeah, then crazy scientist thing going on, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that would like that scene as well. You tell me that you like to engage in conversation. We've already touched on body stuff and you're about safe spaces. I'm getting a sense you're not afraid of a debate, if you could say. About your views or a healthy chat about maybe an issue on the kink scene.
No, definitely. I think it's a weird sort of reaction to, I think, the post-Trump world. Is because I've noticed a lot, especially on social media, especially this past year, is just if someone disagrees with you, block they disagree with me, block they disagree with me, and then suddenly spaces become very insular with views, and then it's just sort of like that's how we got into, I think, a lot of the political stuff that we've got is just people like the shocks of certain political sort of upsets is because people are like, but everyone I knew was voting this way, and it's like, yeah, because you only knew those people and you didn't try and talk to and communicate with, and even on some levels educate people on the issues if they were less informed, or be educated yourself. It works both ways. So I think it's just that kind of, it's a reaction to, I'm happy to discuss and debate and talk to anyone on something as long as there's that I'm willing to try and change your mind or see if my mind can be changed, and we find some ground on that, and then suddenly that conversation leads to the two of us coming away from it better, hopefully, and then suddenly you can go to another person, you can go to another person, and then you've got that sort of growth, which I think in a very social media led time, especially the past year, has become very difficult. There's been people where I've sort of reactionary blocked, but I think on a very I can't do this anymore level. But I think people are far too quick to go, no, can't be bothered, can't be bothered, can't be bothered. And it's like, if you've not tried, you can't really expect people to engage. And then also, if people are like talking to you and they're providing arguments, it's kind of healthy to know that you've got an arsenal behind you of, well, actuallys, or yes ands, and just sort of being able to go, right, I see your point, I completely get that, or learning about their point and going, cool, but have you considered X, Y, and Z? It's like things like one thing that I try and sort of talk about is brands seem to have a if it ain't broke, don't fix it attitude with the type of people that they use in advertisement for gear. I'm sure you sort of know, you'll go through browsing a site and it's the exact same for a lot of the time. There are very particular instances where it's not, and there are brands who I shout to the rooftops who don't do this, but it's all very, and that's the same type of looking person, that's the same type of looking person, and it feeds into that kind of attitude. And if you're not discussing with those people and you're not discussing with those brands or those events and saying, why past if it ain't broke, don't fix it, is this happening? Because unfortunately, it doesn't look broke to you, but to other people, it's not the healthiest.
No, it's there is definitely some brands now that are quite good. Actually, the one that springs to mind, I can't remember the brand name, to be honest, and it's not necessarily a gay brand, but it pops up on my Instagram quite often. It's still that type of underwear that's made of bamboo and it has these panels on the inside, so your thighs don't rub together. I can't remember.
With
but
the New
their
Zealanders,
commercials
with
has
Kiwis,
yeah, they have all body types in their commercials, which I think is brilliant, because this is like, I have quite big thighs, and my thighs do rub together, and that would be quite nice, having underwear that didn't ride up and stuff like that. And I feel more comfortable putting my money in a company that represents all types of men. And I think that's important. Then there's other brands which I would never buy anything from, because they perpetuate a stereotype, like War Paint, and I don't mind name dropping them because I think they're dreadful, which is makeup for men, but because we like
they don't say makeup,
masculinity, we called it War Paint, and I was just like, it's fucking bullshit, and it grinds my gear when they pop up on my wall, because I was like, I would never buy your shit. I don't mind a male makeup brand that has a neutral name, but trying to make it into something it's not. It's like, it's a foundation, it's a moisturizer. Let's just call what it is, instead of trying to make it something else.
Yeah. Well, it's the whole thing where you see, like, on Twitter and stuff, it's like such and such, and then it's pink because it's for women, and then it's blue because it's for men, and it's the exact same product. It's like, this was done why? I think the first instance I saw of that ever was Yorkie bars, where it was basically,
well, yeah, that was used to
men.
be just for men, yes. And I didn't actually know that until I saw it. I probably saw it on TikTok. I get all my news from TikTok at this point. But yeah, but to be honest, talking about TikTok, it is where I learn about Black Lives Matter, trans issues. There's so many great creators on there. And yes, I am a 36-year-old man sitting on TikTok way too much. But I learn a lot of things from these creators, and some really powerful creators, if you take your time to listen to them. Because you don't necessarily have to agree with all of them. There's definitely creators on there where I don't agree with everything they say. But that's the human experience. You don't have to agree on everything. And you might have a slightly different opinion, but you need to be open to it. That's the main thing.
Yeah, because I think then you've at least earned that respect of, you've heard them out, and then they, most times, would then share that respect of hearing you out as well. But I think with those kind of social media feeds, it's about curating your feed as well, not letting it just stay homogenous. And I'm saying that, and I'm being very, not careful with my wording, but very understanding that while people may be drawn to a certain type of person or a certain look, which is completely fine. I think just being able to diversify what you're seeing and what you're engaging with helps so much. Because literally, if you are just sort of looking at very cookie cutter looks, and you aren't going past a certain size, a certain race, a certain country of origin, even literally the amount of people that I try and just follow from all aspects of life and all walks of life, and try and just make sure that I'm engaging with different views as much as possible, or just learning from what they're sharing and what they're looking at. It then sort of becomes more fun, and social media becomes more fun, because you're not going, oh, there's a person doing the exact same pose 17 million times. I can't stand accounts like that. It's just like, and I know exactly how they're going to. Yep, nope, not following that. But having that kind of diversity on those smaller scales helps you be able to look at things and go, right, I can identify how to look more diversely elsewhere in terms of a lot of different things. And like I said, with brands I follow, I will largely only follow the ones that promote more inclusively and use more inclusive campaigns. And it's not just a one-off Real Bodies campaign, because that's a one-off, and it feels like it's
that tick. We've done that now. Yeah,
it's virtue signaling, that kind of thing. It's saying, look, we did it, okay, cool, now let's go further, now let's take one extra step. There's certain brands I've seen lately that have taken that baby step, and people have gone, oh my god, amazing, brilliant. And I've gone, cool, well overdue. What's next? We need to know that this is not a one-off that you can just point to when people call out a very standardized look and view being used over and over again. So I think but that comes with communication, that comes with conversation, that comes with being able to say, absolutely love what you're doing, absolutely love your work, absolutely love your stuff, Get everyone else involved though. Don't make it look like you are just trying to get one type of person involved, because everyone comes in different shapes and sizes and looks and tastes and flavours.
Smells, all sorts of fun stuff.
Oh, cannot wait to smell people again.
It's been so long. Like
I know.
it's like I've just forgotten how it feels really at this point. But for anyone watching like other places like Australia and stuff like that, we're still kind of in lockdown, so we are like a little bit of an itch at this point. But yeah, it's so important for representation and also feel seen. Let's go back to, you mentioned at the start, and it also says it on your Facebook, that you're a bisexual man. And I know the LGBTQ community, or minus the B, can be, I would say, not so forgiving of bisexual people. And that's putting it mildly. Which is a shame, and I think people should just be a little bit more open-minded and just, it's that whole notion, they haven't made up their minds, stuff like that. How do you find navigating that and being in, well, a quite vibrant rubber scene in Manchester, which is very inclusive, but I'm sure there's always going to be bad apples in the basket. So how do you find navigating that?
I think I've found personally just being as loud as possible with it, because it's one of those where people will just assume that because I can't stand straight venues, if I'm going out somewhere, I just tend to just go, I don't really enjoy it, I don't really enjoy this, for many reasons, most of the time because half of them are Wetherspoons and
no.
But it's just one of those where you sort of go out and people are going, oh, and they don't mention things like, it's just stupid things like, oh, have you had many guys do this? And it's like, oh, ladies. Because it's that kind of, because people don't sort of see very binary in that kind of respect, where, and that's why I've got now at least a couple outfits where I can literally turn around and sort of be loudly in these colours and sort of be like, if you are not seeing this now, you don't understand what flagging was, please go back and do your research. I'm flagging. But very much just like keeping up that. And just if someone says something, and it's like at the beginning of this when you sort of said, I think you said something about guys, and I went, and girls. It's just that kind of quick. Didn't need to be like, how dare you? You have discredited half of my sexuality. You are just, it's like, and girls. And it's just that kind of normalising it and just making sure that people are aware. It's not always going to be X, Y, or Z. Like, pansexual people exist as well. Mm-hmm. Asexual people can still be kinky as well. There are, it's an entire pantheon of people. It's not just a rainbow. It's a rainbow.
It is a rainbow, yes.
That's the point.
That's literally what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the whole spectrum of colours and nuances and tones and experiences. Yeah, I know in my group as well, in RealClearFetish, is I definitely have asexual people in my group who enjoy kink, but doesn't necessarily need the sex part. It's much more of a social thing. I know definitely personal, my own experience becoming sober. Sex is a weird size for me nowadays because it was so integrated with the drug taking. So even 3.5 years down the line, it's a weird size for me. And sometimes I prefer the social aspect of it. I don't need the sexiness of it. Well, it's sexy, but I don't need the sex bit. And that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm perfectly happy if I'm not in the mood for it. I don't need to force it, which I used to do. I used to force a sexual drive to happen. And that's not healthy either.
No. No, definitely. And it's just sort of being able to identify those kind of things and just be very... I think it's weird when people sort of hear a very matter-of-fact response. They go very like, oh, okay. It's the strangest thing when versus just going off the handle, because I think a lot of people, like I said, tend to just go at 100 and you've got nowhere to go from there. But if you just, because then if you start with, well, actually not gay, bisexual, and they sort of come back with something that's a bit like, oh, that's not, not real, greedy, blah 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 blah. Oh, cool. That's original. Thank you. I've got a bingo card here. I've got a bingo card ready. I want to get a full house. Can we have all of them, please? And just sort of, because then you can go, well, why do you think? Why do you just automatically assume? Of course, 99% of other people are probably going to be in the same boat as you, but that doesn't mean that you actually like, oh my god, this person has actually like defended their sexuality against me.
Oh, I do you know what? I have to be honest. I've been guilty of, when people have told me they're bisexual, to be really fucking surprised, because it's not my reality. It's not my sexuality, and I surround myself with gay men. So when I do get exposed to bisexual men, it surprises me a little bit. But that's fine, I guess, as long as you're not a dick about it. I think it's the main thing, and I think I mentioned that in the last episode. It's like, don't be a dick. That's just the main thing. Just don't be a dick. That's
fine if you have one. It's fine if you don't. Just don't
absolutely.
be one.
Yeah, just don't be one.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's definitely that kind of. I think I liken it if someone sort of does that too. Okay, but how do you feel if a straight co-worker acts shocked that you're gay? It's very similar, where it's just sort of, they go, oh, I didn't expect that. It's like, well, of course you didn't, because you've got because your expectations are set in a certain kind of way. Someone being in that place of being like, okay, like, cool, let's move on.
Well, if you just it's similar to if I tell someone I had a drug problem. Everyone kind of, because I look the way I look, and I'm still quite boyish looking, I think, and everyone's very surprised. But you're so quiet. You're so nice, and they expect someone with a drug addiction to look a certain way or behave a certain way. That doesn't necessarily make me feel good, because they're assuming that someone with a drug addiction or they are dirty, or they're seedy, or they're not trustworthy. But because I don't fit that archetype, they get very surprised when I tell them. I've experienced that at work. It's like, oh, I didn't expect that of you, Ralph. It's like, because I do present that type of archetype that goes into the teacher with a red apple at work. I am a nice person. I don't necessarily portray what they think an addict should look like. But that's also, like you mentioned, that's why I'm so loud about it, because it's important to have role models or examples or representation of different states of being or mental healths and stuff like that. It's because it just means there might just be one in the crowd, or that sees this video, or hears you at work mention something, and they might just feel seen. And that's so important.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think that leads back to those kind of things of like, it's so important to get events and brands to also do the same, is being on board with, there's a whole pantheon of people past XYZ, let's bring them in, because then it sort of gets into, and I think I put it on that sort of Twitter sort of thread and Facebook post that I did today, where if you've got more people represented and feeling included and being able to be included, then there's more feet in the door, there's more people in the bars. Those bars are then able to hold more events, they're able to thrive more, they're able to do more, and then suddenly it's a cyclical thing to, you've got a more vibrant, you've got a more flourishing atmosphere and scene, so that those people who are very happy now are even happier, and then the people who didn't know if they would be happy are absolutely over the moon because they've got a space as well. Because that's the thing, it's like places like the Village are amazing because it is a safe space, and it should be for all people. It's like Pride's. When people sort of go, oh, you shouldn't have leather, you shouldn't have rubber, you shouldn't have pups, it's like, sorry to burst your bubble, but the people that you are currently talking about are the kind of people who are literally at those front lines, you know, alongside all sorts of people, alongside trans people, alongside drag queens, alongside all sorts of activists and people who and allies who have been literally just paving that way, to suddenly say those kind of people, because it's not family friendly. Because family friendly is against brand, basically, and that's an issue as well.
I've had, I would say, sometimes when you have discussions online, it can be a little bit like talking to a door. You're not getting anywhere because it's very one-sided. I think it's easier to have discussion when you're in person, when you can kind of measure someone, you can get a feel for what they're saying and try to understand them. But when you behind a keyboard, it can be very difficult. And definitely when we're talking about the family friendly at Pride, I see where they're coming from, I guess. But I also, I get angry when I have a younger generation of LGBTQ plus people saying that fetish men are not welcome, or the pups are not welcome, or a slightly alternative way of looking is not welcome because we all of a sudden have to fit into this picket fence dog with kids and family image. Well, then Pride is not necessarily, it's not a family day, it's a protest. It's we've kind of lost track of what it's supposed to be. I'm not saying there shouldn't be a day where LGBTQ plus people who have kids, where it could be a little bit more friendly for that. I'm not saying there shouldn't be that, but blanketly saying Pride is not allowing leather and rubber because it doesn't fit a certain margin just tastes a bit off to me.
Yeah. Well, with that, it's like, it's never the kids who have the issue. The amount of stories that I've heard.
See, the funny, I've had a different experience. I've talked to people in their start 20s that don't want us there, which surprised me, because I do find people in their start 20s quite adventurous nowadays compared to how I was. Was like, oh, feeling old now. But yeah, it's especially young fetish men and women, where I'm seeing them younger and younger, and some of the stuff they're into is like, I was too scared to do stuff like that, and there's still stuff I haven't done they're doing. So it's interesting to see it's changed, but also we have everything online, so people's fantasies and tastes, you can kind of find everything online and kind of explore it from there.
I think that is quite surprising, but I think again it's that sort of having that conversation and educating and sort of being like, well, hold on, are you aware though, especially if they are a young LGBTQ plus person, do you understand how you're able to do what you're able to do and be as open as you are and be able to be who you are freely you don't close that door that's been held open for you. Like, that door has been opened for you, and it's been pushed and prodded and fucking barged down 1,000,001 times by 1,000,001 people who have wanted to make sure that it stays open. If you're closing it behind you, in any respect, of anything I think we've chatted about today, is just...
We are at a risk of going back to, or you're allowed to have gay sex after 21, but you have to be in your own house kind of thing. And that is now... I would rather be in the back room, to be honest. But but we don't want to go back to that. But there is this kind of... But it's I guess it's natural. You kind of... It's always... You take 3 steps forward and 1 step back. And it's always kind of felt like that. There's always, like, if we get, like, move a mile... We've seen it with trans rights. We got so far, but there's been such a big pushback as well, even within our own community. And I think one of the things I've learned in the last couple of years, just because someone's LGBTQ+, doesn't mean they're not horrible people. And it's just because they're in our community doesn't mean they don't have hopefully racist or transphobic views. It's not just for the straights to have those views. We also have them in our own community. And that's where education comes in, and that's where role models come in, or mentors, or and it was like a couple of months ago when we had It's a Sin on TV. I think it opened a lot of eyes to a younger generation of where, like, our healthcare came from and where we were in the 80s and 90s. And I think it was quite mind-blowing to a lot. And definitely a lot of my friends who are of that age group where they remember it, it was also therapeutic for them. Traumatic, but therapeutic. Because all of a sudden they've gone 30 years not talking about it. Now they have this series that kind of just depicts it. It's a snippet. It's not nearly shown as much as it could have. But it's a snippet of it. And you learn a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's something. And with something like that, like, I've got a friend who always sort of tells me about that kind of time and the classic John Hurt adverts, and just saying it was absolutely insane to be sat next to your own parents seeing death throwing bowling balls. It's literally just sort of that kind of level of, oh god, shock. And having that sort of light put on it, I know that several HIV charities had actually run out of testing kits, and I know that Philip Normal, who did the last shirts, I think it ends up at a current count, I think it was like £250,000 for charity. I think it was Tara Higgins Trust, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's that one. And it's just like through that representation, through seeing yourself, because it was a very diverse cast as well, and it just shining that light on people like the Jills of the world, and being able to go, it wasn't just skinny white gay men. Even though that is what may be a quite literally whitewashed view of things may have been, it's showing, well, actually, you've got all these people who went through all of this in different ways, and also how people supported each other. I know that, like I said, my friend said there was a point where there wasn't a week where you didn't wear black because there was a funeral every week, and it was just absolutely insane to think of that, and to actually sort of see it on the TV. The amount of people I had sort of say, please stop saying it's a really good show, because it makes it sound like it's really uplifting. And I went, okay, it's an accurate show, because I've heard those stories and it was accurate. It's like, yeah, it's watch it, but it is accurate versus it's
education. It's educational, gut wrenching. I watched it every Friday. I spaced it out. I couldn't watch it. I was just, because of lockdown and so on, my mental health kind of goes up and down like everyone else. But I couldn't watch all episodes in one go. I would have been a puddle on the floor. I may have needed the hotline myself at that point if I had watched them all in one go. And I was also I was supporting friends after an episode because some of the people I know have lived through it, and they're like, I need to decompress, I need someone to talk to. So I had a couple of evenings where I spent an hour and a half afterwards talking about the episode and crying with this friend because they went through it and the trauma around it. But there's also so many good things that come out of it, like you said, with the testing kits. So many people getting tested at home because we're all at home and no one's really having sex. And if we can
should be
be tested and sort this out, we can beat it. That's the thing.
Well, that's the thing. I think it's just being able to take those opportunities of those kind of representations and just run with them. Literally just being able to go, right, what can we do with this? Which I think a lot of people ended up doing. And like you said, with testing, and just to clarify, because this element shouldn't be, it's like, if we have been in a lockdown where you shouldn't have been mingling with houses, shouldn't be. If you're living with...
Shouldn't. That doesn't necessarily guarantee it's not happening.
Yes. But I think it was so weird that it was airing during a pandemic, because a lot of people don't realise that because it was people called a gay disease, it was a pandemic during that time. And so I think it's so weird seeing like parallels to it as well, and sort of going, right, okay, didn't learn from it that time on this, didn't learn from it this time. How do we make sure, if heaven forbid there's anything else like it, we don't do this again? Because with those kind of mistakes of just people being in that kind of, oh, it won't affect me, la 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 la, kind of headspace, especially, I've sort of ran into far too many people, including, unfortunately, people I've lived with who have sort of just had that attitude, and fun conversations to be had on those ones. Let's say that. But I think just being able to take those opportunities, is just the best thing you can do. And I think just looking at that, especially in queer media, being able to look at those small chances and just take them like crazy and say, what can I do with this? How can I sort this? How can I make something positive out of this, whatever it is? And just go from there, really.
Yeah, I do like my experience, at least from Manchester and safe spaces and so on. It always comes off as a very warm and welcoming community. Of course, I'm not saying it's all roses, but my experience with the scene and the Levermen in Manchester welcomed me and let me host my Sober Social at their last meetup before the pandemic. And it's just about creating those spaces, that being trans friendly or any gear goes friendly or sober, or at least have a selection of sober drinks, non-alcoholic drinks. It's so important to be seen in an environment and not feel you don't fit in. I would never, for my Sober Socials, yes, fetish is welcome, but it's not a priority, and you don't have to have the best gear, you don't have to have the certain same brands, and you can wear what you want to wear. It's what, of course, if it's in a cafe, be sensible for the other customers and don't run around with your dick out. That it's not that kind of thing. But it's just important to not be judgmental, and as I saw you posting about today about the whole snobbery around what type of gear people wear and where they're at in their journey. Just like when I started in fetish, I was 22. My first fetish was worker gear, because I'm from the country, so that's what we had. And skinhead gear, because that's fairly cheap, because it's a pair of jeans and a polo shirt, so that kind of works. And then it kind of just got from there. Nowadays, it's maybe pop gear. Well, it can be a little bit expensive as well, but you don't really need much to be a pup. That's more of a sense of being. Or sports gear, which is fairly cheap as well.
Yeah.
So it's weird when you see fashion happen within the fetish community. Definitely one fashion I've seen in lockdown has been padded ties has been the fashion, and padded cuffs. But it definitely comes in waves what's popular and what fetish is popular on some aspects. When I started out, I did pup play, but everyone looked at me because I was fucking weird. It's like, why are you pretending to be a dog? Now it's almost like, you're not a pup? How dare you?
Yeah. No, well, that was sort of how I got into it, and I sort of, it was so weird sort of seeing the amount of Twitter usernames that changed over the years. Like, it used to be pup X, pup Y, pup Z, and then suddenly it's turned into they've all sort of slowly changed. It started finding like an old username from like back in 2015 and being like, you've not changed it. And just sort of being like,
it's like you're not allowed to stand still and not develop your fetish.
No, how dare you?
Yeah, how dare I? I just like, I still love pup play, and my pup persona Rocco is still there, but I also grew up, and it was much more a part of my early 20s than it is my now almost late 30s. So I know I go into periods where I'm more into leather, and then I'm going into a period I'm more into rubber, and then I go into a period where I fucking can't stand any of it. But that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's just, it's all very mood based as well. You're just like, well, tonight I actually feel like just being this thing, or just, and I think that's where I do like the face painting. It's like, today, Matthew, I'm going to be an orc. It's just very like, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z because that's how I'm feeling, and just having that versatility.
I will say this, and it may be slightly unprofessional, but if I had you in front of me in that orc costume, I don't know what I would do.
Zug zug.
So we kind of coming to the end, and it's been an absolute joy to sit and chat with you. If there's anything anyone has watched and you've said and it's kind of resonated with someone, is there anywhere where people can contact you?
Yes, so it is Banjo Stewie, so banjo like the instrumental, the bear, and then STUAIE on Instagram or Twitter for the regular stuff, and Mutt Banjo, Mutt like the dog, and then the banjo again on Recon and Twitter for the naughty times.
For the naughty times? Isn't that all the times?
It's going to be after lockdown.
Oh God! Do you know what? The clinics are going to be so busy.
No, they shouldn't be. Everyone should know their statuses. They should know their get tested on everything.
Well, I'm sure everyone's tested. I just think there's going to be a lot of body fluids everywhere. It's just what it is.
Don't say that.
Oh, body fluids. Oh, it's going to be very kinky to spit in someone's mouth at this point.
Oh God, the amount of people who are just going to go, COVID.
It's
fine, we're vaccinated.
Yeah. Oh, it's Vax for Vax is going to be the next one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've already seen it on Grindr. It's like, I'm vaccinated. It's like, that's not a fucking excuse. It's not a free card. It's not a free card. Don't be a dick. Come on. But thank you for coming on. It's been lovely having you on, Banjo.
Yeah, it's been very lovely being here. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. And that was Banjo, and now it's 2 weeks break again, and next time we are going to Berlin to talk to one of my buddies there. Bye!